In 1843, British missionary William Smith had resided among the Maori for 3 years, believing he had grasped their way of life. He had chronicled their daily practices, community organization, and religious customs, yet nothing could have prepared him for what he would observe on that dark, moonless evening. A young Maori man named Ringi was preparing to undergo a metamorphosis that would defy European military understanding, evolving from an average individual into something extraordinary. Smith was about to witness more than a traditional ceremony. This was humanity's most advanced form of psychological conditioning, a practice so remarkably effective that it could reprogram the human psyche to achieve unparalleled combat capability. The ceremony commenced at midnight in a sacred forest where Europeans had never been permitted entry. Ringi positioned himself before tribal elders who had devoted decades to perfecting psychological methods capable of fundamentally reconstructing the mind. Concealed in darkness, Smith observed as the elders initiated what they termed the death before death, a procedure engineered to eradicate every mental vulnerability that might compromise a warrior's battlefield performance. The opening stage appeared remarkably straightforward. Ringi remained motionless as elders recited genealogies linking him to distinguished warriors spanning 20 generations. Smith soon understood this transcended mere storytelling. Each name, accomplishment, and triumph was being embedded into Ringi's subconscious as if they were his own experiences. The elders were essentially restructuring his neural pathways to internalize centuries of accumulated warrior expertise. The second stage commenced with Ringi being blindfolded and subjected to methodical desensitization regarding mortality. Through meditation, regulated stress exposure, and spiritual practices, the elders eliminated every survival instinct that might cause battlefield hesitation. Smith watched, disturbed, as Ringi experienced scenarios designed to make death appear more acceptable than defeat or dishonor. By sunrise, Ringi would no longer experience fear of dying. Instead, he would dread failing to die with honor. The third stage revealed to Smith that he was observing something unprecedented in European military methodology. The elders began embodying ancestral spirits, methodically dissolving Ringi's individual identity and substituting it with the unified consciousness of all preceding warriors. Through rhythmic vocalization, controlled respiration, and psychological mechanisms beyond European scientific understanding, they conditioned him to think and engage in combat like numerous legendary warriors merged into one. Smith observed Ringi's facial features transforming. His bearing altered. Even his vocal quality changed. The young man who had entered was vanishing, supplanted by an entity embodying the combined expertise of multiple generations of master combatants. The fourth stage introduced Ringi to what the elders called the rage that burns cold. European warfare relied on regulated aggression and organized formations. Smith was witnessing the creation of something far more formidable, controlled ferocity that could be activated and deactivated at will. Using methods that merged physical training, psychological programming, and spiritual disciplines, the elders taught Ringi to channel boundless aggression while preserving complete tactical clarity. This wasn't uncontrollable berserker fury, this was weaponized intensity that enhanced effectiveness. As dawn neared, the ceremony reached its zenith. The final stage involved dying to the world of weakness. During a 3-hour ritual, every attachment to his former identity was methodically severed. His name was altered. His relationships were redefined. Even childhood recollections were reframed as warrior preparation. When sunrise arrived, the individual emerging from the sacred grove was no longer Ringi. He had become something entirely different, a being whose complete sense of self centered on combat mastery, with psychological architecture optimized for warfare. Smith, shaking with both fascination and dread, recognized he had observed the most sophisticated military conditioning program ever created. The aftermath. Throughout subsequent weeks, Smith monitored the transformed warrior's performance. What he witnessed challenged every European military assumption about human capacity. The warrior could engage in combat for extended periods without exhaustion, not through superior fitness alone, but because the ritual had eliminated mental processes that generate fatigue. He executed tactical judgments under extreme pressure that European officers with years of experience couldn't replicate. Most unsettling, he seemed to predict enemy actions with uncanny precision. Smith realized the ritual hadn't merely produced a superior combatant, it had created someone functioning at an entirely different plane of human awareness. The full magnitude became clear when Smith observed the warrior instructing others. He was witnessing the systematic mass production of psychological warriors using methods European military establishments couldn't comprehend. He watched groups of young Maori men experience variations of the same procedure, emerging with identical composed confidence and formidable combat proficiency. He was observing the formation of a force operating on psychological principles unfamiliar to European warfare. The ramifications were profound. European military dominance rested on technology, structure, and numerical strength. The Maori had developed something more potent, creating individual fighters psychologically surpassing anything European training could achieve. Smith's most alarming discovery was that these transformed warriors weren't just individually exceptional, they were psychologically interconnected in ways enabling them to operate as a flawless unit without conventional military signals. The same procedure removing individual limitations had established a collective awareness, permitting groups to fight with perfect synchronization. The official response. When Smith reported his observations to British authorities, his testimony was rejected as primitive folklore and missionary delusion. European military leaders refused to accept that indigenous psychological methods could surpass European training approaches. This dismissal would prove disastrous. Throughout following decades, British forces in New Zealand confronted Maori warriors whose combat capability seemed logically inexplicable. Individual fighters engaging multiple European soldiers simultaneously. Military units anticipating British strategies before execution. European military documentation from New Zealand conflicts contains descriptions that sound nearly supernatural. Warriors immune to fear, units fighting with flawless coordination without apparent communication, individuals demonstrating combat abilities European science couldn't rationalize. These accounts actually describe the outcomes of the ritual. Smith had witnessed human beings psychologically optimized for warfare, using techniques European military science had never envisioned. The hidden truth. The most unsettling element was something Smith never completely grasped. The psychological transformation wasn't permanent neurological damage, it was an acquired state that could be activated and deactivated as required. Warriors could operate as ordinary community members during peacetime, then immediately access enhanced psychological conditions when combat became necessary. European military structures demanded enormous resources and permanent warrior classes, often economically unproductive during peace. The Maori created warriors who could be farmers, artisans, and scholars when not fighting, then instantly become psychologically optimized combatants when warfare demanded it. The ritual's genuine brilliance emerged in its enduring effects. Warriors experiencing the transformation didn't just become superior fighters, they became enhanced leaders, thinkers, and community contributors. Smith had witnessed not merely military instruction, but human optimization at levels European civilization had never accomplished. Why this knowledge was suppressed? The disturbing reality was this. It demonstrated that human psychological capacity far exceeded what European culture permitted people to recognize. The Maori had developed techniques for accessing mental capabilities European science claimed were impossible. This explains why Smith's reports were suppressed. Admitting that indigenous psychological techniques could produce warriors superior to European training would demolish fundamental assumptions about European cultural supremacy. The ritual making Maori warriors formidable wasn't frightening because of violence or savagery. It was frightening because it revealed human potential that European civilization had convinced itself didn't exist. The modern legacy. The most remarkable truth remains. The techniques Smith witnessed continue today not for warfare, but for cultivating excellence across all domains of human achievement. Descendants of those warriors now apply identical psychological principles to excel in commerce, athletics, creative arts, and scientific fields. That constitutes the truly profound legacy. It didn't just make Maori warriors unstoppable in battle, it revealed pathways to human excellence that transcend any single application.